All right, this is my daily Notion template. A lot of people have been asking for it, and I wanted to get it to a certain point before I shared it, but I came to the realization that it's going to take me a while to get in all the stuff that I want, all the ideas that I have right now, like integrating Google Calendar in a better way than I have, even though it's not shown here, and then trying to connect it to Clockify so that my Clockify entries automatically log into Google Calendar and then also show up here, and a bunch of other integrations that I wanted to do with third-party apps. Um, they're going to take too long to integrate, and I just decided I might as well just show this right now, so maybe I can get some ideas and people can see what I'm working with right now. So essentially, I just have you can't see it here, but every single day I just make a new one of these, and then it just automatically updates the date for what date it is, and then I have my top priorities section here. This is essentially what I write, what the biggest stuff that I got to get done that day. So if I have a 60-minute zone 2 cardio session, then I'll write that in there. And then if I have a specific trail that I want to run that on, because it's either, very hilly or not very hilly, maybe I'll write that in there as well. Um, so essentially the big things for the day I'll put in there. On the right, there's the morning check-ins. So Garmin, and then there's a link here to my Garmin profile, where I can check in on my sleep, see my sleep data, see my training readiness, anything else I need to see on my physical fitness data for the day. Um, this section is essentially just stuff that I want to check in on every single day. It says morning, but until now I haven't really been doing it in the morning, just because I usually have a nocturnal schedule. But this is definitely something I'm gonna actually start doing in the morning now, as soon as I wake up at 4:30. So there's also YouTube there as well to check in on if there's any comments or whatever. Google Calendar. There's usually Google Calendar is integrated in right here above this. I just took it out for this video because there was too much personal data in there, and to be able to sanitize it and then unsanitize it after the video would have been extremely annoying. But usually I have Google Calendar. I just have a URL to my private calendar linked here, and it just shows it in a separate window on the top. But that doesn't have the most utility because it's only one way. So you need to go in Google Calendar to log an event, and then it'll show up on Notion. What I'm really trying to be able to do with a third-party app such as Zapier is to be able to make events, Google events, directly in Notion, and then have them show up on my Google Calendar as well. So that's what the Google Calendar is there for. And then Gmail inbox, I actually have two, my personal, and then for the project. Um, so I try and check out on those. And then that's a good segue into the next one, business news, the mergers and acquisitions focus. This is where I have emails sent automatically to my inbox from companies. So if they have any SEC filings posted to the Edgar system, I get an email notification with a link to it. So that's what I check every morning. And then I also have through my credit cards, part of my credit card strategy gives me access to the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and a couple of other publications like Barron's that have publications that they send out, like newsletters daily and weekly, and I check in on those as well. And it gives me a good summary of stuff I should be aware of in finance. Next one is possible trades in the Roth IRA. That's because when you make trades in your IRA, it's untaxed. I don't really do this that often. I just have it there in case I see anything in the news or have some sort of strategy happening, which usually Usually doesn't happen that often. I don't really think that I'm actually going to be able to trade and outperform the market. But if I want to do some sort of play, it's there to remind me. And then that's kind of what the block underneath that is for there as well. This block is for audiobooks. I recently just added this. I'm not actually reading this book, um, even though I have it on my shelf. It's just kind of there as a template because I'm trying to figure out a way to improve this block essentially. So it has a link to my Goodreads profile where I would assumedly put the book that I was reading in there as well. But the problem with this is that you have to manually update the stats here. So if I wanted to get to the point where I want to, where I'm listening to an audiobook a day, that means I'd have to change this every single day. And, you know, as busy as I am, I don't really want to spend, 5 minutes, changing the title here and then changing the progress here and then, updating, the link or whatever. The notes section is probably fine. That can probably stay the same. Um, but I just don't want to have to spend those extra 5 minutes, updating that every single day. So I'm trying to figure out some way, and maybe other people who are watching this have better grasp of Notion mechanics. They know how to automate it so that it updates, automatically somehow. Maybe if I, have some third-party integration with Goodreads where I enter the book on Goodreads, it'll also enter it on Notion. That would be pretty much ideal because I don't want to be updating multiple different things for the same, book. Excuse me. So this next section I also just recently added gear and equipment, pre-combat checks. So it's just kind of a checklist of stuff to make sure, because I have the deeper and deeper I get into each separate section of the project, the more and more specialized gear that I need. Um, and the more and more specialized gear I need, the more on track I need to be to make sure that I'm actually utilizing that gear correctly to be able to take advantage of it. So most of the stuff is for MMA, but like I said, as I move into different stuff, I'll probably need different equipment for different, activities. Um, I don't really do a whole lot of weapons training right now. As I mentioned, I've been using a SIRT pistol, a shot indicating resetting trigger uh, pistol, but I don't really ever take it anywhere. It's usually just at my house, so I can't really forget it. But if I start training at a range, then I need to remember to bring all the gear that I need to practice at that range, whatever my intent is for that range. So for MMA, for example, for the day of, this is stuff that I need to make sure the day of. I just need to make sure my Nalgene is topped off before I leave. So that means I need to go into Garmin down here. This one's a link to the hydration pro profile in Garmin. I can check off, let's say I've only drank in 20 liters before I fill it up. I can check off I've drank in 20 liters or 20 ounces, and then I can refill it back up. So now I was able to track not only that I was already able to drink some of that water, but also now I have it topped off. So when I go to the gym on the way back, I'm able to guzzle down that liter on the commute back. And that helps me get all my 196 ounces in for the day. So for packed stuff, this is stuff I need to make sure that I have packed so that I don't forget. My heart rate monitor from Garmin, my 16-ounce gloves for striking, my mouth guard, my gi and belt if it's a gi class. Um, I have some medications that I bring with me as well. So I clean my face after and then apply those. And then just normal stuff here. So iPhone, charger, wallet, and keys, phone, and AirPods. Uh, and then stuff I need to do the day prior is check the class schedule. So is it gi? Is it no gi? Um, is there a striking class? Is there not? Is it just Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? I need to make sure my watch is charged. That's sometimes something that I run into. I'll go to the gym, I'll go to record my workout, and my watch is almost dead. so it kind of slightly ruins the workout. I've also got to make sure that I have my heart rate monitor charged as well, because I'm using that for 2 hours a day, every single day at minimum. I also need to make sure I have all my stuff cleaned, and then I have my training shorts and shirt here as well, just because I don't have a lot of, especially shirts, I don't have a lot of them yet. I'm still trying to find some good ones that aren't expensive. So I need to do laundry often. And then when you combine that with how much I train, it means a lot. There's a lot of laundry. So I need to be on top of that as well. And then the post workout, I need to what I'm trying to get into the habit of doing is journaling my techniques and observations. What I'm trying to do is connect this to my website. So maybe I put a link here somehow and have some third party integration where I can write stuff here and it'll upload onto a site, onto the project so people can see, what stuff I'm working on. Which is another thing I've been thinking about that I've been trying to work on, but I haven't quite figured out yet. And then drink a liter of water, as I mentioned before, while driving home. And then this leads directly to my Garmin profile, to the hydration profile, where I can add in 32 ounces at a time. And then I just need to make sure I clean my mouth guard, and then apply that medicine. And then here is just a checklist of stuff for me to do every single day. Um, this is kind of the first thing I added in. It's kind of been here for a while. Um, There's not really a whole lot of specific stuff. Some of this stuff is I need to update. Like I'm not really studying German anymore. I do check these off. Like once you check them off, they disappear. But like I said, I haven't updated some of this stuff. So even though I'll check these off and they'll disappear, um, there's never a day where they're all gone just because I haven't updated this. And I'm still trying to figure out if I can study Arabic every single day or not. But I've stopped studying German for the time being. So some other things like prep tomorrow's itinerary. I try and pull up the next one of these for the next day and start writing the priorities. And then I also need to, check the Google Calendar's events for that tomorrow to make sure I know what the priorities should be revolving around. I have grip training that I do in the train, the cardio session. Um, I record my weight, check my email inboxes, and then track my calories. Which brings us into the next section, which was I built this about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago. I was trying to kind of make it into my fitness pal, kind of make a database of essentially meals. And then I have some meals here that I put in. So when I was having beef and rice a lot, when I have my standard protein shake, this is a different version of the protein shake, and then this is a version of the protein shake with 2 scoops of protein instead of one. Um, so I made these databases, and the idea was that I would go here, click on a protein shake, and it would add and fill in the data for each item, and at the end I would have a total of how many calories. So essentially a version of MyFitnessPal within Notion, but um, I kind of see two ways, two paths from here. I could either really try and build this out, which I really haven't been in the habit of. Even though I built this, I haven't been really using it, and like as you can see, some of it isn't really working. Like there's protein, it definitely in the protein shake, but it's not showing up here. It's showing up as 0, and then the totals down here, I couldn't get because I'm not really good at using Notion. I couldn't get the totals to add up, down here to total everything. So I could try and continue to build this, or I could try and figure out how to integrate MyFitnessPal into here. The general idea of this is that it's supposed to be like um, essentially a digital Alfred. I would come in here, it would pull everything from, let's say I would put it's the 19th in here, and then it would go into Garmin, it would go into MyFitnessPal, it would automatically move everything to the 19th, and start pulling in data. So, if I went into my database of, if I went to the 7th, I would go there and I would be able to see everything that I did for that day. So I'd be able to see, I would have Garmin integrated in here. It would show me how many hours I slept. I could go into MyFitnessPal. It would show me what my weight was for the day, how much fluids I drank, how many calories I had, my macronutrient profile of fats, proteins, carbs. Um, it's essentially supposed to be like a one-stop shop was what I would want it to make it into. Um, but I'm still working on all those integrations. And then something that you start running into is you start running into paywalls. So with Zapier, I can't remember what the paywall you hit it at, but after you hit a certain amount of integrations, let's say 50, for example, they'll start charging you, or they'll just stop it immediately, and you'll have to pay to get any more integrations, um, any more zaps is what they call it. Um, and that's not really something I'm really not trying to do that, because with everything that I do, I would have a million of them. For example, to have my cardio runs automatically uploaded from Strava to my website. So if you go on my website, you can see all my runs are automatically added into a spreadsheet. That's essentially about one zap a day, or maybe one zap every 2 days. I have to have multiple free accounts set up to move those zaps into that spreadsheet. And then when I do the pull-ups as well, um, that also uses even more zaps. And then I have a couple other things that use free accounts as well. So I have like an army of free accounts set up just so I'm able to handle the workload of how many zaps that I'm using before I run into a paywall. Um, but that's essentially it. Um, as I mentioned before, I usually have Google Calendar added in here. It's really just a window, and it kind of looks like a screenshot, even though it's not. You can scroll around and look at events. Um, but the reason why I haven't particularly found it that useful is because it's not two-way integrated. So you can only, put stuff in Google Calendar and it'll show up on Notion. You can't put stuff in the Notion Google Calendar and then it'll show up on the real Google Calendar version. Um, and then I'm, working on trying to figure out, trying to like bang my head against the wall and trying to figure out how to integrate Clockify, which if you go on my site is one of the apps that I use for time management. So when I was studying German, when I was studying Arabic, um, when I was studying for the CPA and the CFA, those were all things that I would click a timer on the app. It would show how long I studied for that, and then I would stop the timer when I was done. And then at the end of the month, end of the week, end of the day, I could see how many hours that I was studying for. And that's how I was able to study not how I was able to study, but how I was able to track that I was studying, 40 hours a week at one point for the CPA. So if you have any advice, just leave it in the comments, and I'll be sure to um, take a look at it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you real soon.